Elbaf could go down as my favorite arc in One Piece. I've been trying my best not to set the expectations too high because after Wano, where the buildup was so long and there was so much hype behind it and it was kind of disappointing to me personally, I really want to keep my expectations leveled so I don't expect too much and then be disappointed in the end. That being said, One Piece chapter 1076 just gave us a slight tease of Elbaf, and I'm just completely hooked, so I gotta talk about this chapter. And where we're actually gonna start is the color spread, the double page color spread that we get this week of the Straw Hats, because it's really funny, okay? My guy Jinbei down here in the bottom middle got his nostrils just full on flared. They are like as open as they could be right by Nami's booty cheeks, okay? I don't know if Oda specifically planned that, but it's looking real suspect, and it's kind of funny because Jinbei is like the most mature guy out of the group, and we haven't seen a single ounce of libido in this man. Like, he seems pretty down to just be settled and alone at his age, but who knows? Maybe being in the crew with Nami and Robin is starting to fire that inner flame back up within him. And then I didn't even notice him at first, but Frankie down here in the bottom right corner, it was mad funny when I actually found him and him just making that face. So just a really funny color spread that I just had to talk about real quick. That being said, with the chapter, we pick up where we left off last chapter, where Luffy and Zoro made this face thinking about teaming up with Lucci and Kaku. And honestly, this was kind of the highlight of the last chapter because it was mostly a setup chapter, which we really haven't gotten in Egghead. Egghead has been really fast paced with a lot of action and reveals, even information outside of the arc like we got in this chapter. But last chapter was really the first chapter where we got the map of the island and the separate floors and people splitting up into their own groups. So it was really setting up for the buildup that's coming towards the climax of this arc. So the ending of that chapter was really the highlight, seeing this funny face of this potential team up, which does actually end up happening in this chapter. And honestly, I really like the dynamic we saw of Lucci and Kaku in this chapter, kind of reflecting Zoro and Luffy. Kaku's trying to be the smart guy, like trying to fool Luffy, which works instantaneously, and then Zoro's trying to bring him back, but then Lucci is just giving away all the answers, saying what he's out here to try to do, and Kaku's yelling at him like Zoro yells at Luffy. And this overall is just really fun because we just haven't seen this side of Lucci really during Enies Lobby. During Enies Lobby, his role was just that vicious, bloodthirsty CP9 guy, which fit and worked really well for that arc, and it was one of the best fights in the story between Luffy and Lucci. But if he just stuck with that personality, it wouldn't really hit, given that his level is just not at Luffy's level anymore, so he's not at the same level of a threat. So it's more fun seeing his competitive and goofy and just kind of stupid side come out a little bit, making him just a more fun character to watch and enjoy. Ultimately though, the two sides do decide to team up, and I kind of like the reasoning for it, because at first I was like, it's not really smart to let him go here, right? Even Zoro kind of recognizes that, hey man, they're not gonna listen to us after we free them. Even if we win this battle, they're not just gonna cuff themselves again. And Shaka's in the background all right guys, I don't know what you guys want to do with this. But Oda still made things work in the end, because the reason Luffy gave I actually really liked, because he was straight up listen, we're gonna team up now and we're gonna try to defeat these guys, and then afterwards you're still not gonna be an issue because I'm just stronger than you, and if you try to act up, I'm gonna beat your ass. Which I absolutely love, because we don't see this side of Luffy too often. But now that he's officially a Yonko, he should talk that talk and walk that walk like a Yonko. He knows the levels to this. He knows he's way stronger than these guys, and he's not gonna be bothered by them. So I was completely okay with this, and it was just really fun to see this side of Luffy come out. Of course, Lucci's still gonna be arguing about it, and it's just fun to see his back and forth with Luffy, but they do end up teaming up, and we get a really dope tag team of Luffy and Lucci and Kaku and Zoro. A really nice callback once again to Enies Lobby because of all that they've gone through. So this was a cool attack spread of both of them, everybody attacking. We also find out that Mihawk's Devil Fruit is Mr. One's Devil Fruit, which I think is very fitting, and also is just very ironic that both of those people are heavily involved with Zoro. And overall, at this point, I'm really looking forward to this fight, because so far it's been a lot of skirmishes and showcases where we've seen the levels to it. We know Luffy is stronger than Lucci at this point, but we really haven't seen them everybody just compete to their maximum potential. Even with the Seraphims, I want to see how is S Bear and S Hawk gonna stack up against these four, because if it was the real Mihawk and the real Kuma, they would definitely pose an issue to these guys. But how about these Seraphim with like the green blood that's on like limited supply and like different devil fruits and all that kind of stuff? Does Vegapunk's replications actually really hold up to the same level as the guys that they're imitating? So hopefully we actually get a little more out of this battle and not just a really quick skirmish. But for the time being, we move on to another big reveal that is containing information about the traitor. Now, for me personally, I actually wasn't that hooked for a while. I know all the theorists have been going crazy and thinking about which Vegapunk is it? Is it Pythagoras? Is it Caribou? Is it actually Stussy? Personally, like with these kind of mysteries, I kind of like just like playing dumb to a degree, just letting it ride and not looking too deep into it. Even with when we got the Kozuki clan traitor with Kandro, I kind of just let it be and didn't really look too deep into it, whereas a lot of people figured it out by like all the clues that Oda had dropped. But when we actually got the reveal, the Kandro reveal was fantastic to me because I didn't see it coming and I didn't look into it. So I kind of felt the same about this whole Vegapunk traitor thing that's going on. But this chapter actually got me a little more invested into it because as we find out, the CP agents are actually getting starved here. So whoever is the traitor here, now we're finding out they're like kind of really evil, right? They're starving these guys for a long time. They're not kind of just like nonchalantly working with like the world government or whoever they're working with. Like these guys are like pretty villainous. And I think that was one of the things that held me back from being super invested because I kind of figured like, okay, so one of these robots is the traitor and like we don't really know anything about them. And at the end of the day, they're robots. So like they could just be easily reprogrammed. But now that we know like some more information about what they're doing, I'm just becoming a little more invested. I'm still not sure who it is. I feel like Shaka is a good pick because he seems like the smart guy that knows everything. I feel like Lilith is a little too obvious. Some people have been saying Pythagoras or Edison. I'm not really sure the reasoning behind those. The sneaky pick here, I feel like, is York, because York in particular, she really has that Kandro vibe, right? Because if you think about Kandro, out of all the scabbards, Kandro was by far personally my least favorite. All right, he was really funny at first with Ryo Nosuke, what we saw as Zoe and Robin's reaction, that was fantastic. But like overall as a character, he just felt really empty. And like he was such a clear background character. Like imagine if Kandro was just himself and wasn't like an actual traitor during the raid on Onigashima. He would be such a boring character that nobody would care about. But in the end, it turned out he was actually a Kurozumi and he was a great villain. York, on the other hand, kind of fits into that same type of profile. Right now, like we have Shaka is kind of like the logical brain. Atlas and Lilith are like the people that have a lot of personality to them. Edison, Pythagoras, and the real Vegapunk himself seem like the brains behind the operation, kind of fitting in that Shaka role as well. And then you have York, who's in this really funny role where she just eats, shits, and sleeps, and that's literally it. So it's like, okay, that's a funny thing that they have one Vegapunk dedicated to that, and that's all they do. But like, as a character, if that's literally all York does, she's gonna get very boring and empty very quickly. So that part of me kind of wonders, like, is York actually the traitor? Because like, if she isn't a traitor, she might be a kind of a boring and pointless character to a degree. Obviously, she's not completely pointless, but you know what I mean. So York might be the option I like the most right now. I don't think it's gonna be Stussy or Caribou at this point because they aren't involved in like what's been happening for like an entire month. This was something we found out earlier as well. Previously, like they mentioned the CP agents attacking, but lo and behold, they've been just captured and starving this entire time, and we just didn't know about it. That being said, it really feels like we're starting to build up towards this climax, and I'm really hoping that we get an actual clash with this guy involved, because I really just want to see the admirals actually take action and like not just be this quick little skirmish where they're not really doing much. The only admiral that we've really seen go all out is Akainu during Marineford, and he's gained a ton of respect from everybody in the power scaling community because of that. But outside of that, every time we see the admirals, they've been in the background. I just want to see, how does Luffy stack up currently against an admiral? Because I can say that I think Luffy is stronger, but it's still close enough where it's like, we don't really know. So like let's actually see them tussle and throw down. The warships are all coming together. Things are going to get really hectic when we actually get to that climax, because the people from Sword is going to be involved. I'm sure Smoker and Tashigi are going to be on one of those fleets as well. And they know and like Vegapunk who helped them, so they're gonna be conflicting as well in terms of what they do. But in the end, when we get to that climax, I just hope we get to actually see a proper back and forth between Kizaru and Luffy, and then hopefully after that we could do a new top 30 stream. That's gonna be a ton of fun on the main channel. That being said, let's get to the real juicy stuff, because you know when it's serious when this man shows up. And this is what feels crazy about Endgame and Elbaf and everything together, because Elbaf, like, we're gonna get an entire arc with this man. Like, the fact that we've just like even seen his face like recently within like 15 or 20 chapters is already crazy. This man shows up like once every 200 chapters. It's so like iconic whenever he shows up that the whole community goes wild. I still remember how hype I was just even seeing his ship arrive in Wano, even if it was just for a film red promo. But this man makes an appearance in this chapter, confirming that he has connections to Elbaf and that he will be involved in Elbaf. And then on top of that, seeing this right here, Oimo and Kashi, Dory and Bragi with the red hair pirates all together. I don't know, man. It just made me feel some type of way, because like, number one, it just reminds us like how long Elbaf has been built up for, right? Little Garden was really one of the first islands that the Straw Hats went to in the Grand Line. It was really the first like weird island that we went to. It was like there's dinosaurs and giants and we're just meeting this whole new race. So Elbaf has been foreshadowed and set up for so long, and seeing these characters, like I had the same feeling when we found out about Saul, who we didn't meet until Enies Lobby. Now seeing guys we met from Enies Lobby, and like Dory and Bragi actually made it out of there, which honestly I didn't even expect. Oimo and Kashi I expected would be in Elbaf because they said they were going to Elbaf, but like Dory and Bragi, I thought they might just have to retire on Little Garden at that point. So seeing them and them like confirmed to be involved in this arc is just really exciting. As far as Shanks goes, I'm just really curious at like what is his actual connection to Elbaf, right? Because we always knew the hints were there, right? His ship has that Viking theme just like all the giants of Elbaf do. So everybody kind of thought like, okay, Shanks is probably going to be involved in Elbaf, but like, is Elbaf his territory? Because that seems kind of crazy. Everybody knows the strength of the giants. If he actually has Elbaf as his territory, I feel like that would be a bigger deal that people talk about more. So is it more so just a friendship with a lot of the locals, or a straight up alliance with the giants? What is Loki's connection to this? Because Loki is like mythologically, just in terms of all stories from the MCU to Norse mythology, he's just always been a villain. So I don't imagine Shanks is like straight up just like the ruler of Elbaf. That seems kind of crazy, but I just want to know more information about like what is his actual connection here. I personally feel like he's probably just like made a lot of connections in this village of giants because he himself is strong and they respect that strength. But that's one of the many things we're gonna get to Elbaf, and like just the idea that we're gonna get an entire arc finally with the red hair pirates and Shanks is kind of just like mind-blowing to think about. Even seeing their reactions and like interactions in this chapter of like how they're actually like got like fangirls all over them, right? Like with the Straw Hats, like I mentioned earlier, even with Jinbei, none of them have any libido. It's like all of their libido just got pushed onto Sanji and he's just like overloaded with it, and everybody else is just a celibate. The red hair pirates, on the other hand, they're grown men, all right? So they be messing around. Like we see Shanks in this chapter with his own version of like a giant Luffy that wants to go with him, another bartender that has fallen in love with him, so we might have another baby in Elbaf coming in the way that he might just abandon. But seeing all these people fangirl after him, Ben Beckman as well, it's just really fun, and it also confirms the information that we learned in that volume 4 billion that came out, saying like each of them and whether or not they're good with women. We don't get to see these adult pirate themes too often, so seeing that through the red hair pirates is really fun, and I can't wait to see more of it. And of course, I haven't even touched on Yasop and Usopp and the potential of that story. And then on top of that, we also see in this chapter, Use's kid is about to go head to head with Shanks. I don't think that's gonna go well for him. The community is already flaming him for being a walking L because everybody knows he's gonna lose. At the same time, I don't think like he's straight up just gonna get bodied and then like get kicked off the island, right? Because like, what is the point of that? Personally, I'm excited. I'm just excited that kid's gonna to be involved in another arc. And hopefully this time around, he could just be like back to that menace self, right? That's the one problem I've always had with Yuza's kid. It's not the fact that he talks a bunch of talk and is never really to walk that walk and has been just taking a lot of L's. It's more so like, where is the Sada kid that was like, hey, I'm just gonna like hurt innocent people because I'm that guy? That person kind of disappeared in Wano. Like, we gotta remember all the shit that Kaido put Kid and his crew through. Like, he absolutely demolished them. Killer was forced to eat a smile double fruit and now is forced to have this crazy laughter. Apu betrayed him to get to that point as well. And then in the end in Wano, we had Kid just be like, you know what, Luffy, you could take down Kaido. I'm just gonna move on to Big Mom. And then at the end of the arc, Apu was just chilling there and Kid was just like, you know what, I guess I just don't care anymore, right? Like, it just didn't feel like the same useless Kid that we were established to know in the first place from Sabaody. So like, that's the Sada Kid I want to see come back. Not like be a complete villain. Obviously, he's just not that guy anymore now that he has established a relationship of some sort with Luffy. But I want to see him be like a little more evil and that kind of anti-hero, like that just like neutral guy that is trying to go on his own path. So is Kid gonna beat Shanks? Absolutely not, but I don't think it's gonna be a massive L like he took against Kaido. On the other hand, I'm more so interested in what Shanks is trying to do because it seems like he's backing up his word of he actually wants to go after the One Piece. He's going after the road poneglyphs. Does he actually have one himself? Because we are still missing that final one. So Elbaf might be the next island that we go to and all the pieces come together there. Overall, there's just so much potential with Elbaf. I haven't even mentioned the lore that will come, the Robin and Saw reunion. We still don't know like who will be the big villain. Is it just going to be Loki and the Giants and some sort of conflict that goes on there? Or is Blackbeard, who's making a move himself, is he going to be involved there to some capacity as well, given his connection not only to Shanks, but also with Luffy? At this point, I'm just not going to contain my expectations anymore. I'm just going to be excited and looking forward to it. And if it flops, and I'll just be disappointed. I'll be a sucker for it anyways. But Elbaf, it's looking like it's going to be fantastic. I'm really excited. Egghead is still fantastic. And for all the people that thought for some reason that Elbaf was not going to happen, what story were you reading, man? Two Piece?